Hello, Bobby K. Harbinger of Genova here, and in this video I am going to be discussing how mainstream corporate media deliberately and maliciously misrepresents radical political philosophies, including anarchism, communism, and socialism in deliberate and malicious ways that are both obvious and insidious in nature. Now, now a lot of this is just textbook neo-McCarthyist shit, but like a lot of this does seep into mainstream American discourse to the point that if you express a viewpoint that is even remotely pro-leftist or anti-capitalist, you are painted as a dangerous, subversive, and potential terrorist. And that's a very old tactic of the feudal powers, right? Like the oppressor has always projected the fault onto the oppressed. And the bourgeois has always projected their own moral failings onto the proletarians. And it's hilarious how almost everything that is blamed on socialism and communism, including idleness, apathy, loss of emotional affect, psychopathy, the cultural decline, like it's actually a consequence of reactionary politics and economic neoliberalism, not socialism. In fact, socialism, anarchism, and communism have historically stood as moderating forces to, ironically enough, to these shitty aspects of hyper-capitalism, and because communist anarchism, and socialism have been so demonized over the years, and their definitions so bastardized by the mainstream corporate media, to the point where anyone who dares treat workers or minorities as, or women as human beings, is now regarded as an SJW, and indeed as an enemy of the West. And this is hardly surprising because patriarchy, hyper-capitalism, hyper-competitiveness is very much embedded into Western culture, and has been for many years. Like, it didn't start with RT or the Cato Institute or the Austrian School of Economics. Certainly those things have not helped. However, like, it goes way, way back to, like, the early 1900s, you know, the days when women and children were still working in dirty factories, and steel mills for under substandard conditions for shitty wages. And a lot of these white Anglo-Saxon Protestant cishet men want to go back to that. Like, not even joking. They want to go back to the conditions of the early Industrial Revolution, if not before. And let me tell you, like, if you think that the quote-unquote free market, when there's even any semblance of it in the real world, is a pretty sight, it is not. Not at all. Like, and it's funny because a lot of the things that a lot of like American conservatives, and I say that in quotes because conservatism, real conservatism, has been a dead philosophy for years. Like, and ironically enough, a socialist like myself is probably the closest thing to an actual conservative in this day and age, in that I actually understand what traditional values have been. I actually understand what America has been traditionally like. And I actually respect family. I actually, I'm not someone who just uses the plank of family values like so many of these motherfuckers as an excuse for homophobia or some shit like that. I actually give a damn about families, which is why I want different kinds of families to have their rights respected. which is why I have objected to the Patriot Act since before it was trendy to do so, which is why I have been for the rights of Palestinians before it was trendy to be so. Which is why I consider the notion of the nation-state an absolute crime against humanity, which is why I consider banking cartelization to be a cancer to the planet and humanity, which is why I consider Nazism and Zionism twin evils, and that's coming from someone of European Jewish descent, by the way. And yeah, to be clear, socialism means worker control of the means of production, okay? Like, socialism does not mean the big government or social programs or socialized medicine or whatever. Like, just because something is quote-unquote socialized does not make it socialist, okay? In order for something to be considered socialist, the workers have to own the means of production. Not the state, not some political autocrat, not the military, not the quote-unquote nation, the workers themselves. And likewise, there is a difference between the Soviet Union and communism, as I have explained on multiple occasions. The Soviet Union was state capitalism, not communism, because the Soviet Union had social classes. It had, granted, it used uniformity to hide the fact that it still had social classes, but, like, hiding the fact that you have social classes behind a uniform is not the same as actually abolishing classism and social class in general. In order to do that, you have to hand over the reins of the means of production to the workers themselves, which the Soviet Union did not trust the workers enough to do. And in fact, if you read Vladimir Lenin's works, he actually was very open about the fact that he had founded a state capitalist regime. Of course, he he argued that the state capitalism of the USSR was more different than from the state capitalism of the US and the UK than I would consider it to have been in hindsight. But I digress. Also, anarchism does not mean chaos. In fact, Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, the first man to call himself an anarchist, actually stated that anarchy is order, and this is where the classic anarchist symbol of the A inside the O comes from. That's what it represents. That's what it means. Anarchy is order, right? And what this and what this means is, like, people tend to confuse order with structure, right? But order does not come out of structure. Order does not come out of hierarchy. In fact, hierarchy gives an illusion of order, but in reality, all hierarchy gives off is regimentation and exploitation, much like capitalism itself, right? Like, the work world under capitalism is little different from chattel slavery. It granted the physical punishments may not be as severe as under outright chattel slavery like they had in the 1900s, but nonetheless, the coercion, the monetary coercion especially, it's very much present, and I find it hilarious that quote-unquote right libertarians constantly, complain about fraud and theft, even though the capitalist system they endorse is absolutely chock full of fraud and theft, and actually its entire their precious free market, its entire existence is dependent upon fraud and theft, and always has been. Also, like, this false dichotomy between total state control and total market control, which, like, in reality, the effects of either total state control or total market control would be pretty much the same as far as the masses are concerned. Like, it would be repressive as fuck. Like, poverty would be at an all-time high, and history has always shown this to be the case. And Yet communism, a stateless, classless, and moneyless society, which is what we need more than ever, is constantly demonized because people don't understand that it's not the market versus the state, it's the market and the state versus the people. And until the people wake up to that fact, true freedom cannot exist, right? This has been Bobby, aka Harbinger of Genova. Liberty, equality, fraternity. Goodbye.